All right, everybody ready? It's week 5 of our series. Anyone excited for that? Yeah, okay, listen, it's not a competition, but who's most excited for week 5 of our... We'll work on that. Okay, so in the basement of the house that I grew up on is a wall, like maybe 15 feet long, like a long wall, and on the top of this wall, everything above the chair rail or above the height of the couch, 15 feet, this wall is absolutely covered with plaques and certificates and awards and pictures commemorating the various accomplishments that my sisters and I achieved as we were growing up in our academic careers. Maybe you have a wall like this in your mom's house. So just to give you a picture of this 15 feet of glory, my oldest sister, for instance, finished first place at the public speaking contest at Parkwood, which was our elementary school. I know, that's right. She won and actually went on to compete at the county. I think she won that too. So the point is that plaque is up there on the wall. My sister Pam went on to graduate high school top of her class. That's true. I can't remember. Maybe she was valedictorian. Those details don't matter. But she went on to graduate and then graduate again and then graduate again. And now she is a tenured professor at Adelphi University in New York City, New York. She is an international systems theorist. She got bored a couple years ago. So she graduated again from the esteemed Jungian Institute in New York City, and now she practices on the side when she's not teaching or traveling, and the details are unimportant. Because our other sister, my other sister, kind of the same, graduated not top of her class, but with a higher average than our oldest sister, graduated again and then graduated again, practiced alternative medicine, got sick of that, so she's gone back to school and will soon graduate. The details are unimportant. What you need to know is that this wall in my parents' basement is absolutely covered for 15 feet of plaques and certificates and awards and pictures as a constant reminder of all that my sisters and I achieved growing up. And if you look long enough and hard enough, like a Where's Waldo of my life, you will find a plaque of when in grade 4, I got 3rd in the school for the most laps around the yard in the Terry Fox run. I know. Not since Terry Fox himself has there been a more inspiring athletic performance. No, that's not all. In grade 9, my star continued to rise, Fraser, when I was named midget basketball MVP. I kind of peaked in grade 9. No. It doesn't end there. If you look hard enough, you will find not one but 2, and I could not make this up if I tried, 2 drama awards from my last year of high school. Mrs. Buckle, tear down that wall, I say. No. Okay, so listen, this morning we are continuing our series called The Old You with a message called The Wall of Shame. No, it's not. That's not the title of the message. The message is called The Comparison Trap, people. It's called The Comparison Trap. Now, I should probably clarify, my parents have always been just as proud of me as they were of my sisters, and my sisters are actually legends. We are super close. I am their biggest fan and am most proud of them. I should also say to this day, my parents insist that I was not adopted, so... Can any of you relate at least a little bit to that? Or how about this? Who here in this room has ever, at one time in their life or another, felt a little bit insecure? Daryl, are you asking those of us who are insecure to put up our hands? You bet I am. How else are we going to find out who the psychopaths are? Yeah, listen, you may not have been raised like I was as a crumb in a petri dish of human computing power, but listen, I think everybody feels insecure sometimes. Everybody gives in to what one person called the fear that my hidden fears about me might be true. Yeah, I think everyone finds themselves in situations sometimes, or maybe even walks into actual rooms where, depending on who's there, they can't help but wonder, will I be enough? Do I have what it takes? Will I succeed, or will I fail? Will I be accepted, or will I get rejected? Will my weaknesses be exposed, and will I feel ashamed of that? Will I be loved, or will I be alone? There was a study that looked at the well-being of 5,000 millennials. Any millennials in the room? Yeah, not willing to put up your hand. I know, we all know you're there, you millennials. 5,000 millennials. Maybe you can relate to this. People born after 2000, for those of you wondering what a millennial is. The researchers spoke to young people about their sense of overall well-being and mental health when they were 11, 14, and 17. 11, 14, and 17. They found that there was a distinct drop in girls' self-esteem and the sense of self between the ages of 11 and 14. Yeah, at 11, 15%, which maybe isn't that bad, 15% said they felt unhappy about their appearance. But by the time they were 14, that had doubled. Yeah, that would double. There was a different study that found that by age 17, 78% of American girls were unhappy with their bodies, they said. Yeah, strange, right? How about this one? This one blew my mind. 45.5% of teens report considering cosmetic surgery. Teenagers, right? Crazy. That does improve. This might surprise you. By age 60, only 43% of women considering cosmetic surgery in this study. Like, what are we doing? Right? What are we doing? What's the message that we're telling each other that we start to believe ourselves that makes us even consider such drastic measures just to add another plaque or another picture to the wall in the basement that tells us that we are enough? Apparently it's 12. Yeah, 12 years old apparently is the age when girls start to lose their self-confidence. What about you? When was it for you? When did you start to lose that childhood self-confidence? There's a story about an old-timer who comes on a bunch of kids at the corner sand lot, and they're playing baseball. And so this old-timer kind of shouts to the guy in the outfield, and he says, "Hey, what's the score?" And the kid replies, "It's 27-0 for them." Trying to find something to say to this kind of kid to kind of ease the situation. He says, "Oh, well, better luck next time, I guess." And the kid looks at him strange and replies, "What do you mean? We haven't even gone to bat yet." Yeah, that's confidence. That's what confidence looks like. When does that kind of childhood confidence disappear? For most of us, maybe it's when you first realize that you might not be able to live up to that idealized picture of yourself that you had when you were growing up, or the expectation that someone else who you deemed as important put on you in your love, placed on you. Maybe the expectation you placed on yourself. Maybe it was the first time you met someone who could seem to be able to live up to that expectation. Someone who seemed to be able to do with ease that thing that you try hard to do, or worse, someone who can do better than you at that thing that you really kind of pride yourself on being able to do really well. Have you ever fallen into the comparison trap? Yeah, maybe all of us have. The comparison trap is where people are when they start to measure their lives or their achievements or their worth against someone else's life or achievements or worth. Ecclesiastes chapter 4, the teacher says, remember the teacher in Ecclesiastes is intended to personify wisdom. He says, "Then I observed that most people are motivated to success because they envy their neighbors, but this too is meaningless, like a chasing after the wind. It's amazing. 2,500 years ago or something like that, the book of Ecclesiastes was codified, and it's speaking to stuff that's still happening today. That's the comparison trap, when what drives or motivates you is keeping up with or being better than some other guy. When you measure your worth by how well you are doing when compared to other guys, that's the comparison trap. I should tell you, though, that not all comparison is a trap. 1954, psychologist Liam Fessner published his social comparison theory. It suggests that we all, as humans, have this innate drive to understand ourselves by comparing our characteristics to those around us. That people come to know themselves by measuring their abilities or their opinions or their social status in relationship to others. We want to know how we fit. That's the point. We all want to know how they fit. We feel anxious about that. We try and reduce uncertainty about ourselves by using social information as kind of benchmarks for our own self-understanding. Does that make sense? Okay, let me put it this way. You know, I don't really know how I feel about Nickelback. Nickelback, yeah, Nickelback. Okay, yeah, you know what? We do this all the time. Yeah, we use social comparisons to find our people, right? To find places of belonging. And the risk, of course, in finding our identity by how well we fit into social norms. You may have heard this before. Roosevelt said, comparison is actually the thief of joy. That's the risk. Comparison's the thief of joy. I should be able to fly my flag as high as I want, right? I should be able to play Nickelback as loudly as I want. But according to social comparison theory, this is how you remind me of what I really am. I had to work so hard for that one, so thank you for that. I'm just saying, maybe not all comparison is bad. Maybe not all comparison is bad. People engage in social comparison for self-understanding, for self-evaluation. It's how we figure out what we like, right? What we are like. It's how we recognize when we found our tribe. Have you found your tribe? What a good feeling, right? Comparison is at least part of how we find a sense of belonging. Second, social comparison can also drive self-improvement. Have you ever had a friend who dropped a bunch of weight and you were kind of surprised you hadn't seen them in a while, and all of a sudden they were half the person they used to be, and you're like, wow, maybe I could drop a stone or two because they did, and maybe that's possible for me. And so you give it a try, even though you hadn't or wouldn't think to give it a try. That's positive social comparison. Okay, quick show of hands. How many of you came to church last week and had a strange child come up to you and give you a sticker? Yeah, there was absolutely nothing to do. There was nothing to that, okay? That was just kids being kids. That's all that was. Okay, quick show of hands. How many of you came to church this week and had the same strange child give you a sticker? Okay, let me tell you, this week we've got something for you. Maybe you know where I'm going. This is the story behind that. Have you ever read Max Lucado's absolute tearjerker, You Are Special? Yeah, You Are Special. You got to read it if you haven't before. It's about a people called the Wemmicks, who spend their days handing out stickers, gold stars and gray dots. Punchinello, it seemed, only ever received gray dots. And so he feels ashamed and jealous, wishing he was like the other Wemmicks who were covered in gold stars. One day, Punchinella meets Lucia, a unique Wemmick who has no stickers at all. So when he asks how this is possible, she simply explains that the stickers do not stick to her. Punchinello wishes all of his gray dot stickers wouldn't stick to him. So Lucia introduces Punchinello to Eli the woodcarver, who tells Punchinello that everyone is special because everyone is made uniquely. He tells Punchinello that the stickers only stick if they matter to you, and that the more Punchinello trusts in Eli's love, the less he'll care about the stickers. Yeah, it's kind of ironic that it's a kind of social comparison that frees Punchinello from the comparison trap. When Punchinello compares all the stickers in his life that remind him of all of his flaws and all of his failures and all of his sins and regrets, the most embarrassing moments in his life, when he compares all that to the stickers that he thinks he sees on others, proudly boasting of their gifts and their successes, Punchinello feels terrible about himself. But when Punchinello compares himself to Lucia, who somehow has found a way to live free of all that, he actually feels hope for himself. Maybe there's a way for him to be free of all that. You know, all series long, we have been inviting you guys to think about parts of the old you that you'd love to leave in the past, to take a step of faith, whatever step of faith you need to move towards the version of you that gets to live free of the stuff that was weighing you down in the past. To believe that change isn't just possible, change is inevitable when you make a decision to follow Jesus. We've talked about breaking free from all sorts of things, bad habits like cynicism and complaining. That was a good one, right? Or bitterness and unforgiveness. We've tried to convince you that your life doesn't have to be so chaotic and, quite frankly, exhausting. Well, if you're like me, maybe you would also like to leave behind the hurts that still haunt you sometimes, that were caused by people who judged you for whatever reason, told you you didn't measure up somehow to their opinions or expectations or tastes or preferences. Yeah, some of you here maybe are carrying around like a weight from those conversations, those moments in your life. Well, Teddy Roosevelt said, "It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better." And you tell yourself stuff like this too. You got posters of it up on your wallpaper and in your computer, all that. Man, those stickers can be hard to shed though, can't they? Right? I really want you guys to learn this year that you don't have to spend any more of your life trying to earn the approval of critics, right? They can't give you worth that they don't have to give. Only your Creator can give you that. Only your Creator can give you purpose and meaning and value and worth. Now, I know we all feel joy from being with people who love us, who value our best parts, our traits, who value us for who we are, celebrate who God made us to be. But your worth, right? My worth comes from Jesus who loved me and gave himself up for me. It has to be that. That's the only place where this works. Does that make sense? Good. So if this is something that you struggle with now or have ever struggled with sometimes, then part of getting past the old you is learning how to navigate the comparison trap. So we're going to spend a little bit of time doing that today. I don't want you to miss, sometimes comparison is medicine. Sure it is. When people find you and you find people who tell you that you belong, that you are loved, who celebrate those good qualities, but also who inspire you to become all that God created you to be and to grow and all that, that is a gift. Those people are good. That kind of comparison is medicine, but sometimes comparison is poison, right? What's the difference then? What's the difference? The scriptures absolutely give us some insight. If you haven't already, the notes are in the YouVersion Bible app. If you click the little ... click the events tab, that sounds like 100 things. Just scan the QR code and you can find the notes. We're going to Philippians chapter 3 for those of you old timers with your analog Bibles. Who knew the Bible was a book? Yes, it is. Grab your Bible if you have it with you. Philippians chapter 3. This is one of my favorite passages. I don't know if it makes me feel naughty or rebellious or something. Philippians chapter 3, Paul warns us to watch out for the dogs, those evil doers, those mutilators of the flesh. Yeah, I know, right? Easy there, Paul. You kiss your mama with those lips? Yeah, what's got Paul so worked up that he's using special occasion language? Who's he talking about when he uses strong words like that? This is it. Apparently, there were some people in the early church who would judge a person's faith or faithfulness by gold stars and gray dots, right? By this list of external or harsh, even legalistic standards. I want you to know that comparison becomes poison when the standards that you judge or are judged by essentially are human in nature, first of all. But I made a list of how you can recognize when comparison has become poison. So comparison is poison when it perpetuates inequalities. Like if you have no chance of measuring up because of the place you were born, because of the sex you were born, because of the color of your skin. If comparisons perpetuate inequalities, they don't treat people equally, they are unfair, that's poison. That's poison. Comparison is poison when they celebrate standards that are totally arbitrary. I already said that. Human in origin. Arbitrary. Like, who gets to decide what's good and what's bad? Who decides when they're arbitrary? When they seem extreme, they might be. Yeah, if what you're going to compare to or compared about seems really kind of extreme, some of you have noticed in the magazines, the models in the magazines, you're like, is there something below size 0, right, for these people? That's extreme, right? And those kinds of extreme comparisons, those extreme standards lead to all sorts of poison, like toxic poison. Sorry, I lost my notes. Sometimes the rules we use to judge others are just plain obsolete. That was the last one, and that's kind of this case, just plain obsolete. I'm not going to go down the whole rabbit hole to explain this whole text, but if you're reading along, you got to know that to the Jews, circumcision, which comes up in this text, was a sign or a symbol of the covenant between God and Israel. That's what it was. It was part of the law. No such thing exists in Christianity. No such thing exists in Christianity. There is no sign or outward symbol that exists that can show who is in and who's not, who is faithful and who is faltering. Christians need to stop eating from that tree, right? That makes them think that they know what good and what evil is, right? That makes them think that they should use that knowledge to judge and compare each other. First of all, we're not very good at it. We're not. I heard a story about a pastor who preached a whole sermon on the Sermon on the Mount, a series on the Sermon on the Mount. If you don't know, the Sermon on the Mount are Jesus' own words. Right after he finished preaching this thing, he started getting letters from his parishioners threatening to leave the church if he didn't tone it down with all that woke nonsense. Words of... If you are more conservative or faithful or proper or polite than Jesus, your calculator's broke. Right? Does that make sense? Absolutely. This stuff happens in the church all the time. Matthew describes this in chapter 11, verse 19. You know, the Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say he is a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. Some of you have been called names. You're in good company. Jesus was called names. Yeah, Jesus was called. If Jesus were here today, we'd find some reason or another to give him a gray dot. So weird, right? So weird. So Paul's response to these religious judgy pants and their made-up rules, Paul says, those who are true followers of Jesus, he says, put no confidence in the flesh. He's talking about gold stars and gray dots. Though I myself, he says, have reasons for such confidence. If someone else thinks they have reason to put confidence in gold stars and gray dots, Paul says, I have more. He says, you want to play the comparison game? Let's go, dogs. Then he lists the things that you and I compare each other to all the time, the things that we use to judge each other based on. He says, circumcised on the 8th day, the people of Israel. Okay, you're thinking, no, Daryl, I'm pretty sure I've never compared myself to someone for that. Sure you have. Are you part of the in crowd or the out crowd? That's what it is. The in crowd or the out crowd. Gold star, gray dot. Of the tribe of Benjamin, a Hebrew of Hebrews. Do you come from a good family? Because I come from a good family. You got a good reputation? Not so much. Gold star or gray dot. In regard to the law, a Pharisee. What school did you graduate from? You know any Latin? Summa cum laude. That's what they say. Yeah, what's on your resume? What level of Candy Crush have you achieved? Gold star or gray dot. As for zeal, persecuting the church, we do this all the time, right? Nobody works as hard as I do, right? Nobody's more zealous than the buckle. It's absurd. Yeah, it's totally absurd. Gold star or gray dot. And then Paul says, but wherever were gains to me, I now consider loss for the sake of Christ. What is more, I consider everything a loss because of the surpassing greatness or worth of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord, for whose sake I have lost all things. I consider them garbage, rubbish. There's Paul in his potty mouth again. That I may gain Christ and be found in him, not finding value or worth or purpose or position, not religion or a righteousness that comes, of my own, that comes from the law, but that which is through faith in Christ, the righteousness that comes from God on the basis of faith. And some of you might read a text like this and be feeling a little bit like Punchinello right now. Honestly, the first time he heard that gold stars or gray dots don't matter to our Maker, it must have sounded unbelievable. And for any of you raised in a moralistic or traditional or more fundamentalist frame, you were actually taught that good boys don't talk like that and good girls don't dress like that. Let me tell you a secret. There's a certain amount of comfort that you get from being one of the kids with the gold stars. As long as you can keep up that image, though, right? Yeah, but none of that stuff matters to your Maker. It can't make you right with God. It doesn't define your worth to God. Those kinds of judgments, that kind of comparison, man, I hope you know this. That stuff's poison. That's what Paul was saying. That's rubbish. That is no good for you anymore. If you use it to evaluate people's faith or right standing with God, it's not helping you. The Apostle Paul experienced that to the Judaizers, who are the name for this group of people. Paul wasn't good enough. Yeah, there were Judaizers, Jewish Christians who thought they knew all how to do this thing in Philippi. Paul wasn't good enough for them. He also experienced it in Corinth. Chapter 3, he told them, you're behaving like a bunch of babies. Actually, you can look it up. It's almost word for word. It's just more fun how I said it. You're behaving like a bunch of babies with all your comparison and judging and jealousy and quarreling. Paul's watching comparison causing all sorts of conflict to pop up, but he himself would not take the bait. Because Paul was tired of getting judged and compared to others, but he did all the time. Jesus experienced it too. Remember, he was called a glutton because he loved to have meals with outsiders. He was called a drunkard because he would share a pint with anyone. He was called a friend of tax collectors and sinners because Jesus didn't actually pick his friend group based on who could benefit him socially or advance his career. Friends, comparison is a poison to ourselves, and it's a poison to the people that we serve it to. In 1 Corinthians 12, it says, you're all special because you are all unique. That's why. You're not special because you're all the same kind of special. You're special because you're all unique. It says there are different kinds of gifts. It's the same Spirit who distributes them to each one of us. There's different kinds of service, the same Lord. There are different kinds of working, but in all of them, everyone say all of them. In all of them, in everyone. Everyone say everyone. In all of them and in everyone. In all of them and in everyone. All that stuff and all of you. It's the same God who's at work. Yeah, God's not more at work in some of you and less at work in others of you. God's at work. Now, to each one, these gifts that demonstrate, these uniquenesses that demonstrate and magnify the character of God to a watching world. And all the gifts are given for the common good, it says, for the benefit of all of us. What's he saying? Saying life's like a team sport. So all you have to worry about is just keeping your stick on the ice, right? Yeah. Comparison is poison if it makes you ignore your gifts and wish you had your neighbor's assets. So if we see someone serve and it makes you want to serve, we all win. If you see someone sing and it makes you want to quit drumming, we all lose. If you see Phil Collins sing and drum at the same time, we all win if it makes you want to try that. There will still only ever be one Phil Collins. Brené Brown said it this way: comparison kills creativity and joy. Yeah, so stay in your own lane. Paul said something just like that in Galatians chapter 6. He says, each of us should test our own actions so that we can just take pride in ourselves alone without comparing themselves to someone else, for each one should carry their own load. Some of you have been carrying someone else's load all your life, taking on their expectations that aren't God's expectations, taking on these standards that God's not asking you for, that aren't what's best for you, but because someone else said it, someone else implied it, someone else inferred it. That's how you were taught, or trained, or raised, or whatever. You've been carrying all these loads of all these other people. If you, friends, have ever struggled with this, if you have ever been judged and hurt by the words of others, for some of you, it explains this pattern of brilliance and burnout. It's coming from your own heart, right? Brilliance and burnout is you striving, you're almost addicted now to the approval of others. So the question we're all looking for is, how do we actually heal from this then? How do we heal from the hurt? How do we get free from the weights of the comparison trap? Very quickly, I wrote down a few ideas for that, and maybe you can follow along. First, stop feeding the fire. You got to stop feeding the fire. You just got to know that there are some people and that there are some places where the messages of negative social comparison are loud. Some of you know exactly who I'm talking about when I say that. Yeah, it's just a good idea to limit the amount of time you spend with people who are always criticizing each other. We're always criticizing other people or highlighting their flaws or celebrating, it seems, the latest gossip on so-and-so who blew it again. You just got to limit the amount of time you spend with people like that. You guys, I hope you know, you just got to limit how much time you spend scrolling social media. Yeah, absolutely. Looking at the filter lives of people showing off their abs, and you know they're skipping leg day. You know, you just got to limit the amount of time that you spend. Stop feeding the fire. That's just it. This is the boundaries message that you get almost every week. You just got to know. Second, you should find out what God says about you. I could actually speak for a year on this. Coincidentally, it's Groundhog Day, so we're going to say this as many times as you need to hear it. Some of you grew up being told that God's mad because you're bad and you're lucky that Jesus got in the way. Right? The truth, Shane shared this the other week, Romans 5:8. Actually, I want you to think about all of your weaknesses and flaws and failures and sin. This might surprise you to know that those are the exact places where God demonstrates his love for you. Yeah, that's not the response you were expecting. That's not the response you were taught to expect when you misstep or blow it. Oh, you better hope God didn't hear that one. Oh, better hope God didn't see you wearing that to school. Oh, yeah, but that's grace. That's the point. That's grace. And until you find out what God says about you, you might be tempted to believe what others say about you, and they don't know you like he does. They don't love you like he does. You are Christ's workmanship, it is said. That word means a piece of art. God's own piece of art is you, created in Christ Jesus for works. That's acts of service that God has prepared in advance just for you. You're chosen by God. Imagine that. Forgiven, loved, adopted. You are a precious daughter, a precious son. In fact, could we with ink the oceans fill, and were the skies of parchment made, were every stalk on earth a quill, and every man a scribe by trade, to write the love of God for you would drain the ocean dry. Amen. Nor could the scroll contain the whole, though stretched from sky to sky. Sometimes you need an anthem. Some of you need a new song to play. Maybe that's a good old hymn for you. Obviously, Daryl Buckle didn't write that. But Daryl Buckle's listened a lot to that. Some of you have been lied to. You have. I just wish you knew what God thinks about you. Yeah. Find out. That's what I'm saying. Find out what God thinks about you. Find out. You gotta pore over the scriptures. You gotta read it over and over again. And if there's a part you don't understand, you gotta call Shane. You can call me too. You got to call someone you know, your home church leader, your small group leader, your life church leader, the friend who brought you here. You got to find out what God says about you. And you got to fan into flame the gift of God that is in you. Here's the good news. You only need to live up to the person that God made you to be. You're like, Buckle, are you kidding? How do I live up to the person God made you to be? Well, this is the good news. God made you to grow. Yeah, God made you to grow. That's all you need to worry about. In Philippians 3, Paul says, not that I've already obtained all this or have already become perfect. None of us have become what we are becoming. That's why we talk so much around here about growth. That's why, because all of us are in process. So fan into flame the gift of God that is in you. Use the person that God made you to be to serve, not to impress. Does that make sense? Number 4, spend time with people who bring out the best in you. That's a good one. That's a fun one. Marshall, a friend of mine, retired pastor at one of the churches where I served. He would come up to me after church, wait in line. If he had to, wait in line to talk to me. And he would look me in the eye, sometimes through tears, and he would say, thank you for that. And then he would give me this grandpa hug. And I'm telling you, you could fight a bear after hanging out with Marshall. You guys need a Marshall in your life. You need someone who is so sure that God made you right that the more time you spend with them, the more you start to believe it too. Find your Marshall. Find your Marshall. One last thing. I thought a lot about how to say this. I hope you appreciate it. When you get free of all the stickers from the stinkers who stuck you, you'll be free to forgive all the folks who have hurt you. I know it sounds stupid and shticky and stuff. I wanted to be able to remember. I wanted to find a way so that you would remember it. Because you're not truly free from the comparison trap until you can forgive the people who hurt you. Shane talked a bit about that last week. If you missed that message, by the way, go back. It's on YouTube. It's on our podcast. Make sure you catch up on that message about bitterness and unforgiveness. Don't forget what Shane also said. You know, forgiveness is a process, right? Forgiveness takes time. That hurt doesn't go away, right? That doesn't go away quick. So don't stop. That's a simple. Don't stop. Keep processing, keep working out forgiveness, because you might believe now what God says about you, but maybe still feel the hurt of what other people said about you. God can set you free from that too.